Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Poets and Quants and Center Court's Executive MBA Festival. Today, we're joined by an alum and admission director from the EMBA program at the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School of Business. I'm your host, Christy Blyzeffer of Poets and Quants. Please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions you have, and I'll do my best to get to those at the end of the session. Well, let's begin by getting to know our panelists. Just take a minute to introduce yourself if you would. And Emmy, let's start with you.
Great, thank you. My name is Emmy Luck, and I am a 2023 graduate of the McCombs Executive MBA program. So I live in the DFW area in Fort Worth, but I commuted down to Austin for their program. I work for an advertising agency called Saatchi & Saatchi as a senior director of core media, working on creative campaigns for Toyota USA.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Stephen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Sweeney. I'm the Director of Recruiting and Admissions for our Working Professional and Executive MBA program. So we have a Working Professional program in Dallas, one in Houston, an Evening MBA in Austin, and then what we're going to talk about today, the Executive MBA, which is in Austin as well. Before I worked here, I worked at Amazon and then have received my MBA from the University of Texas at Austin as well, from the full-time program in 2011.
Wow, there's a little bit of a, back to the past kind of things that are going on. So, well, Stephen, let's just get into a little bit more about, kind of the mission, values, what sets McCombs apart.
Yeah, so I think there's a few areas. So one, definitely rigorous academics. So our program is you're going to come in, take quite a few quant classes, whether that's stats, accounting, finance, to really get that business foundation, to then build upon that and go into strategy classes in your electives. So right off the bat, definitely some strong academics mixed with a lot of real world learning. So we'll talk more about this, but we have MBA Plus projects where you can do micro consulting projects. And then I think really we have a huge, obviously broad network, an amazing brand at Texas, but really a tight-knit community in the executive MBA program. So there's about 60 or 65 students each year in the program, and they really become lifelong friends. And so along with all of that, being in Austin is a differentiator for us. So whether that means being entrepreneurial or being in one of the fastest growing cities in the country, there's a lot of opportunities for our students to get that hands-on experience as well.
Yeah, and just that Austin vibe as well, which is very fun. So, Emmy, tell us a little bit more about your kind of decision on going for an MBA. What kinds of were the factors you were looking for, why you chose an executive MBA, and why at McCombs?
Sure. Well, I graduated with a journalism degree from UT Austin in 2004 and have been working in the communications field. I started as a journalist and moved to the ad agency side, and I've really been building in PR, communications, but I was coming to sort of a precipice, a crossroads, you could say, in my career that I had the communications subject matter expertise. I would look at P&Ls related to the business. My husband owns his own business, so we're business owners from that standpoint. But you don't know what you don't know. But
Right.
I kind of knew the things that I didn't know. I knew that I didn't know certain things as well. And that's when a friend of mine said, have you ever thought about maybe getting an MBA? And since my undergraduate degree is from UT Austin, and I have family members who are McCombs grads, that was my first place to looked also at other programs in the DFW area. But when Stephen was talking about that quant business foundation, I knew that was something I was really lacking academically, and I really needed and wanted for my own career and just professional knowledge. And it came at me hard in the program, but that was the point. And why specifically McCombs and why specifically the executive MBA? A couple factors is one, the EMBA program had just changed up their curriculum the fall that I was applying. And we were a lot of guinea pigs for a lot of things during that time, but I also appreciated that they took a hard look at what their curriculum, how it was programmed, and made changes. So I thought, okay, this is an institution that isn't so stuck in this is how we've done it. Let's really evolve with the changing needs of business. And then McCombs has a Dallas program that meets twice a month. I really wanted the executive because it meets once a month. I'm able to go to Austin once a month. More than that wouldn't have worked well for my family situation. But also, the ultimate deciding factor as well was the rest of the cohort had similar years of experience as what I had. And in speaking with past alums, admissions counselors, they said the conversations that you'll have are similar levels. You might be in different industries, but it'll be similar levels of challenges from operationally, HR, hiring, vision, growth. And that really was the case. So, obviously I'm doing this program today, this interview today. I'm thrilled that was my choice, but those were sort of the steps that took me to that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Being an English major to MBA myself, the knowing you need more quants, but it
Yeah.
hitting you hard, I can hear that completely. So, Stephen, let's get back down into some of the nuts and bolts a little bit more, like she was talking about the format, schedule, class size, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so this entering class that just started in August, so about a month ago, we started all of our executive MBAs come to Austin for about a week. They stay on campus. We have a hotel that's connected to our business school, really to set the tone for the program, make those bonds happen quickly. So we had 66 students start about a month ago, 29 cities in Texas they came from, 10
Wow.
different states. So to Emmy's point, the fact that we meet once a month, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. allows us to have students fly in really from across the country. So California, New York, Chicago, wherever. And so they're meeting on campus in person. We are not a hybrid, flex, asynchronous, synchronous. We are in person,
Mhm.
classical model, I guess you could call it. That is where we find the most ROI for our students. Our students appreciate that. And so everyone comes together for that 3 days, once a month. And then there are certain times, and I'm sure Emmy can get into this as well, where instead of coming to Austin for the class weekend, we have different immersions for what we call. So instead of coming here, actually in October, next class weekend in October, the first year students are going to go to New York City for class for those
Okay.
3 days. So they will meet with our alumni network in New York. They will have different networking opportunities. They will go on some class visits. There will be some academic content. Similarly, we go to Washington, D.C. for more of like a policy and business intersection weekend. So there we go take a global trip. So there are some opportunities instead of coming to Austin for that class weekend, we would go on one of our immersions.
Yeah. Do you guys have any kinds of different concentrations, or are they kind of all together through the program as a cohort?
Yeah, so we offer different electives throughout the program. So you can kind of create your own path, I would say. So there's multiple electives that start really your summer after your first 2 semesters. And so students kind of can think about, do I want to go like deeper into finance? Maybe they take the valuation elective and then they build on that. Maybe they take private equity finance as an elective, or maybe they go more human capital. They'll take negotiations and more of a human capital class after that. I would say the majority of students really kind of combine all of that to
Yeah.
keep the degree as general as possible, but really whatever makes the most sense for their career. So there are opportunities to take electives. There's not formal concentrations or majors or minors. You graduate with an MBA. And so that is how we pretty much differentiate the curriculum based on what our students need.
Absolutely. Well, Emmy, tell us a little bit more about that academic experience in the classroom. What are you doing a lot of group work, individual work? What is it like having kind of that diversity of experience and thought that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, I think what's really nice about an executive program and what they really foster at McCombs from day one is that collaborative environment and that collaborative spirit. And year one is certainly more of your, quant type courses. So they put you into study groups, and while you may have some individual assignments, you may have some group assignments, everyone has a different strength going into it. And, myself, the journalism degree, we have folks who had masters of engineering, we had medical doctors, we had attorneys. So admittedly, I felt a little bit, I felt nervous going into it. I hadn't been in an academic setting in, about 15 years at that point. However, once I was in the program, I realized there were things that was able to bring to the table. Um, I've been a manager for many years. I have really strong soft skills, very strong presentation skills. So whereas I didn't know net present value, I hadn't taken statistics in a long time, I needed a lot of help with that. I could also provide help in some of the organizational behavioral classes, or really challenge my study group members on what they really thought empathy was, perhaps in a situation where they could have maybe handled it differently at work. And I think being thrown into something like that together when you are just very different, it is very humbling, but it is also empowering. And once it got to the second year and we're taking more marketing classes, suddenly they said, "Oh, you actually do have a lot of experience. This is what you've been doing for the past 20 years or so." And I think that was just really impactful. And other classmates that I've talked to, where they were very accomplished, and I asked them, at lunch a few months ago, I said, "So was it still worth it to you? Because I think you're doing, you knew a lot of the things." They said, "Well, the course met all the quantitative finance stuff. I knew that, but leadership, my organizational behavior, my hiring and firing, and even, just that empathy and leadership." They said, "I would have never learned that if I hadn't gone through this program." So I think no matter where you're coming from, if you go in with that open mindset and learning spirit, it's just in such a more focused environment than what will likely be able to get on the job of your daily work life.
Yeah, where else in your adult life are you gonna be able to kind of have this like such diverse where you're sharing strengths and weaknesses across that kind of group like that? Very interesting. Stephen, what would you say is kind of like the defining feature or the differentiators of McCombs, something students would get there that they might not get at other EMBA programs?
Yeah, I think for us, we have students come in, and I think Emma's a great example of just the various backgrounds that she just mentioned. So that's one. So just to put some data around it, 15% of our incoming class came from a tech background, 13% from consulting, 10% from finance. So you're not going to be, I think, long story short, overwhelmed by a bunch of marketers or a ton of finance people. It truly is people coming to Austin or who are already here. 10% of the class are CEOs, founders of their own company, right? So there's a big entrepreneurial spirit in the program. I think that permeates throughout the city as well. I think the faculty, the students, you're going to get, we talked a lot about academics. That's sort of like one pillar of the program.
Yeah.
Career management is another one. So there's a dedicated career consultant to our program. A lot of that is customized for the individual student because our executive MBAs are doing executive level recruiting, obviously. And so it really is differentiated for everyone. You can do, negotiations in terms of like a raise or a promotion and talk with the consultant on that. It could be networking. So that's another second pillar. The third is really like everything else that doesn't fit as nicely into academics, we call MBA plus. And so that's a big part of the program. That really entails some of our experiential learning. So it could be our MBA plus projects. We have 40 or 50 projects every semester where our students can be consultants for those particular companies. So it could be large companies that are Fortune 500 looking for help. It could be startups that just raise funding and need to figure out how to allocate it effectively. So that's a great way for our students to dip their toe into something that they think they're interested in, but they obviously don't want to leave their job completely, or they want to get some exposure in another industry or sector. And so those are a great opportunity. So those are kind of like the three pieces of the program that I find to be really valuable for our students. And then within MBA Plus, we also have executive level coaching also that's sort of non-career. So it could be you have a board presentation and you need help storyboarding it, or it could be you have to have a difficult conversation with a colleague at work. Like, why don't you bounce some ideas off of these professional communication, PhD level folks to really get that? Or it could be long-term career planning, 10 years down the line. What are you looking to do? So there's a lot of opportunities for our students to take advantage of that. All the MBA Plus stuff is optional, but again, our students are coming here, they want to get the most value out of the degree, so they find that coaching and those projects extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think maybe, a few years ago, people were more likely to think of an executive MBA as a way to maybe like get up into the C-suite of their current organization, or maybe get a promotion, learn to manage their team better. But it sounds like you have some people that are really looking at, to change maybe organizations or careers as well. Is that true?
That is true. So about 50% of our students make some sort of career pivot during the program. So that could be they change functions, they go from finance to marketing, or they change industries. They go from advertising to the airline industry, just making things up.
Yeah.
And so there are those pivots that happen during the program. And some students have wanted to work for a particular company for a long time, haven't been able to get in on themselves. And then they sit next to one of their classmates that works at that company, and then you find, things work out that way as well. So it is not 90% of our students are what we call enhancers, staying at their company, moving up to the next level. It is a big mix, and that's why we do have dedicated career resources for our students.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, Erin, sorry about that. Emmy, let's talk a little bit about kind of that student life outside the classroom, because that's still kind of one of the fun things about going back to school. What is the student culture like? What kind of, networking or clubs or kind of those outside aspects from the classroom that you were able to participate in?
I think McCombs fosters a lot of that and really encourages it outside of the classroom. In a more official capacity, I was part of the Graduate Women in Business chapter, doing communications. I was at admissions of, I think they call it MAC. I can't, Admissions Council, McCombs Admissions Council person. But I think even beyond that, there's more informal networking and socialization. And so, like Stephen said, the weekend, you get in Wednesday night and you really leave Saturday after class, or maybe Sunday, depending on your schedule. And they encourage, and I really tried to have all of my homework done before you get there for that weekend. So in the evenings, you can get dinners together. We had an EMBA running group that maybe the first morning you're there, you're running. The second morning, you might be a little tired from the night before. We even had a moonshiners club where people would bring very informally, not affiliated with the university, bringing their favorite whiskeys or tequilas out and imbibing together. In New York, I think, and the other immersions that occurred, I think socialization was very much encouraged. Sometimes the dean said you're focused a little too much on the bonding socially, let's focus this on the classroom. But just like in regular business, why do people learn golf? People learn golf because traditionally that's where so much happens. People go to lunch together, people go to happy hours because that's rapport that you can build together. So in business school, that really should be no different. And quite honestly, when you're learning and enjoying just hanging out with each other, that is simulating what building relationships could be in your professional life moving on. But then you end up having some really unique, wonderful conversations, and it might be balancing work and family life, or thinking about how someone might start their next business endeavor or company, or they want to invest in something like that. You're the whole person, and so I think it's really exciting when that can come out together. And Stephen was talking about McCombs Plus too, or an MBA Plus, and I participated in that in the consulting project for a company looking to revamp their go-to-market strategy, as well as the leadership fellows. And the coaching that I was able to receive, I mean, I can't imagine how much that would cost. The program itself is, not cheap, but the value you were receiving by being attached to an institution like this, I just had to mention that as well, that I think it was a huge part of my experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find that you're still are kind of engaging with that network professionally and personally?
Yes, definitely. I think we just went on a trip in the spring with several of my MBA classmates, and going to see some in South Texas next month with a conference that another classmate is putting on, related to marketing and that industry. And I think as you see people with their promotions and moving into new ventures as well, it just gives you a different circle of people. Or even banking. We were at this trip a few months back, and they were looking for new funders, and so one of our bankers could be, a connection that we made to help with some funding, and that's something that's just very naturally continued on because you were in such this pressure point situation that 2 years seems like a long time when you start, but I think you get into the end of the last semester or the beginning of that second year, I mean, and it really flies by, but there's a lot that condensed in that time.
Absolutely. Great insight. Thank you. Stephen, back to you. Let's talk a little bit about, you're working with students that have pretty typically demanding careers, family, and now you're throwing them into like this kind of rigorous academic environment. Tell me, what kind of support does McCombs have for helping students kind of like balance some of that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of support throughout the program and even before you start the program. So from an admissions perspective, really what we're looking for, do we feel like you can handle the quantitative rigor? Do you obviously meet the high bar of an executive MBA? And so some of the academic prep happens before school even starts. So we have an optional accounting, we call it an accounting boot camp for a couple days, come on campus, prep up there. We will potentially give you some additional prep if we think it will be helpful for you before you start. Then there's that first week where everyone gets together in Austin. And then there's a whole team that's a student affairs team that will help you with academic advising. If you're having some difficulty with academics, there's obviously the faculty if you want office hours or things like that. A lot of it happens sort of organically with the study team, as Amy was saying, like rely on your study team. You're not here alone. Like it's rare that you're going to do a lot of individual work. A lot of the work is going to be done as a group, and your study team are going to be folks who are very different from yourselves, who have different expertise, come from a different background. So we see a lot of support organically happen that way, but there is a whole team that's here to make sure that your experience is great, but also that you're academically thriving as well.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, what did that balance look like for you? What kind of advice would you give to someone who's like maybe considering a journey like this?
My journey was unique, or it was probably uncommon, but not too unique. I got married a month into the program,
Yeah.
and then I gave birth to my first child at the beginning of our second year.
Wow.
And so that was that was a lot. Um, my husband is very supportive, so I think that was even something in my admissions interview the dean said was, look, assistant dean said was, like, make sure you get your partner on board because this really is a family affair. So I didn't have children at that moment, but he took on a lot of the housework because in the evenings I really had to do homework. And then, definitely having a baby in the middle of the program and trying to finish up your second year was a lot. It was very challenging. However, I plan in advance. I talked to people, and I don't know, you just make it happen. Like I remember being in Heathrow Airport on the way to my honeymoon doing accounting homework. Like that's just what you do, right? Or I have multiple pictures of holding a newborn baby in one hand and holding my tablet in the other, doing financial statement analysis homework. And I will say the cohort stepped up in phenomenal ways too, where, I mean, it makes me emotional to this day, where there were group assignments and there were folks that asked to be in my group when they knew that, for a couple weeks I would be completely out of commission. And they said, no, let me be in your group because we're going to pull you along. Like it to this day, it just really touches me. The immersion to Washington, D.C. My daughter was 6 weeks old when I brought her along. My mom came too, and we just made it work. I think, and just from like a obviously Title IX perspective, there's a mother's room at Rowling Hall. So from a very practical standpoint of being a new mom, I was able to accomplish that. And so I say, my challenge was the very new family dynamic that was happening. There were other people that were needing to do international trips while they were still in the program. And those were things where you just share, this is what's coming up. And so you have your study group, you have you work with your professor, and someone says, okay, well, I'm going to be in Dubai for the next week and a half. I can't lead this assignment, but I'll lead the next assignment. Okay, cool. We'll do most of it. You come in and do this part. And then that person would follow through the next end because everybody has something that's going on. And I'm really grateful that, I was able to go through that. And there's never, and I say all of that to say too, is there's never a good time to get an MBA either. I can't tell you how many colleagues that I had here who said, I thought about that so many times. I thought, gosh, I can't commit 2 years right now. I can't do that. And then you realize 2 years later, they're done.
Right.
So if I could do it, you could do it with a little bit of planning and coordination, I would have to say.
That's amazing insight on how that works. Would you say that, like, McCombs was kind of supportive, offering solutions for people like either you or some of your classmates that had real conflicts?
Oh, definitely so. And I mean, I think there were, even with my honeymoon, I was a month into the program, terrified, and the finance midterm conflicted with the time I was going to be gone, because there are some asynchronous exams or things like that. And a very, very staunch kind of curmudgeon-y professor, he made an accommodation for me, and we made it work. And so I think but that's the communication. I know other folks who weren't as communicative and had a more challenging time. And later they said, I wish I just told the professor I was having surgery. Maybe I wouldn't fill in the blank. It's like, no, this is a working professionals program. I think people expect to have real life. However, the academic rigor is very tough as well. I do not want to minimize that. And there were moments looking down, it's like, I don't know how to do this. Am I just the dumbest person in the world? You take a step back and think, actually, they wouldn't be assigning this to me if they didn't think that I had the skills to do it. Do I have the skills to do it? So you don't know quite how much you're capable of. And I think it being so challenging academically and schedule-wise helps reinforce that and gives that much greater sense of accomplishment on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you had to, Emmy, were there some moments or takeaways that you really felt had some, the most impact, either professionally or personally?
Yes, I think so. The one of my classmates had a phrase that said, "Confidence breeds competence."
Ah.
So, or competence breeds confidence, I should say. And that was to my earlier of where I knew that I didn't know so many, several things related to, especially the financial services industry. And I still work at the same company that I did when I started the program. I did receive a promotion and I have a lot larger scope of visibility. But there are a lot of moments from financial perspective, even creative campaigns that are developed using that kind of terminology. And it says, when you say investment, that somebody with that background is going to take that to mean something very differently. I wouldn't phrase it that way, but whoever came up with it felt very well meaning, but if they don't have that background of what someone in a financial industry would think about, then they might not realize that. And I also think that a large takeaway was just seeing what could be possible from a career space, but also just from a personal growth and development as well. The leadership seminar I think we had was very impactful for me, and leaning into what they always say, oh, lean into your superpower. And that's so buzzy, but when you can actually take the time to evaluate it, you see people with doctorate degrees who have studies that now your skill sets are being measured in this area. Suddenly you can focus on really how am I growing what I'm really great at, and how can I fill in the gaps of where I might be weak. I think that's something I've always been so focused on. Well, this is where I need to improve. This is where I need to improve. And while that's important, taking the step back and saying, no, look, this is what I'm very strong in, and this is where I can really bring a lot of expertise. And I actually have a lot of very accomplished folks who told me that through their research as well, and that I demonstrated and I saw that I think I can speak with a lot more authority in my work. And that is something I just don't know that I would have had without kind of this behind the scenes work from the MBA program.
Yeah, absolutely. Great lesson. Something that you don't really think about until you've gone through it. So, well, Stephen, tell us a little bit more how, people watching this, if they're interested, where to really kind of engage more deeply with the McCombs MBA or EMBA to see, if it's a good fit for them.
Yeah, so I think if possible, the best way is to come to campus to experience it yourself. And so we have visits when we are on campus meeting for the class, so once a month. They are called Discover McCombs. You will come eat breakfast with us and the students, sit in a class, meet with the career consultant, talk to the assistant dean, talk to me, whoever is there, because I feel like that will give you obviously the best insight. My information I can give now, later, reach directly out to me. We have a McCombs Ambassador Committee, as Emmy mentioned, who are current students on our website, so you can see where they work. You can reach out directly to them. So we try to make it as hopefully streamlined as possible for you to really get the information you need. But I always find we do a lot of virtual stuff, but if you can make it onto campus for one of those events, that will be the best opportunity for you. And really, just one thing I've been thinking of, like, a lot of our students, what I hear when they start, they talk about like imposter syndrome. Am I really an executive MBA or not? Or who's into the program, right? You need to have at least 8 years of work experience to qualify for our executive MBA. So there is a minimum sort of just at that level, but there are, as Emmy mentioned, doctors, lawyers, architects, C-level executives, but there's also individual contributors in the program who work for a flatter organization and a tech company or something that don't even have any direct reports. So there's not like one mold of a person that fits our program. I encourage everyone, if you hit that 8 years of experience, see if it's the right fit for you. We also have an evening MBA in Austin or Dallas. So there is a program out there, but I just want to put that out there that executive MBAs, it is at a high level, but it is open to non-executive, I guess we could call like aspiring executives as well.
Absolutely. We'll give everybody the best kind of starting point, either your email or the website or.
Yeah. If I put it in the chat, will that come up or no?
That
I
is
can also just
yeah,
call it
just
out.
say
It's
it. That's
Stephen
a
A.
good question.
Yeah, it's Stephen.Sweeney@mccombs.utexas.edu. So that's long, but I'm also on the website.
They could find you on LinkedIn as well, I'm sure.
They can. They can.
Everybody has LinkedIn in the MBA.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, thank you both so much. Great insights. And something I don't think you really get from, just an article, that kind of personal story about Emmy having her baby and everything else. So thank you both for taking the time. And of course, thanks to everybody who tuned in. We have a lot of other panel sessions with top business schools and their MBA programs throughout the day. You can find those on our website, poetsandquants.com, where you'll also see a lot of other articles, videos, more to really help you decide which programs are right for you wherever you are in the journey. So until next time, thanks for listening.